Hi, my name is Julie Roca, and you have found the podcast Aging Gracefully with Julie Roca. We talk a lot about preparation in this podcast because I think that it's so important. We have had an elder law attorney on. I have invited a financial advisor before. But today, my guest is a cool combination of both of those things. So, Kathryn Lancaster has been a good friend of mine for the last several years. I think we met maybe through the Alzheimer's Association. But, Kathryn, tell me a little bit about your background. It's very interesting to me that you have both of those pieces, the lawyer and the financial advisor. Tell me what brought you there.
So, back when I was a teenager in high school, I wanted to know the rules. I'd had an experience going to court, and if you're in court and you don't understand the rules, it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And I decided at that point, I am going to know the rules. I'm going to be an attorney, and I am never going to be in a situation again where I can't say what I need to say in a courtroom. So it was, one of those things that it just was kind of traumatic, but it really made me resolved.
Yeah.
And then I also, at that time, was just in studying history, learned how so many people do the wrong thing in investing. Ordinary people didn't have someone to tell them what to do to not get hurt. And so they would be putting like with the Great Depression, a lot of ordinary people were copying what they thought the wealthy were doing, putting all of their retirement savings into some stocks. And then when the market crashed, they just took it all out thinking, oh no, it's worthless now. And so many people lost their retirement savings.
They lost everything. I mean, I remember seeing pictures and things of the Depression, and people that lived in beautiful homes no longer had the money to keep it up. They didn't have the money to feed their family. Children had to be farmed out to other family members sometimes. I mean, it was really bad.
Yes. And that's really what made me want to be a financial advisor. So when I got to the decision of in college, I decided, well, if I'm an attorney, I can still be a financial advisor. But if I'm a financial advisor, I can't necessarily be an attorney. So I went to law school and got my Juris Doctorate in long, long ago, far, far away year. I practiced law for 25 years.
Okay.
Then when 2008 happened, the Great Recession,
right?
It wasn't as bad as the Great Depression, but once again, too many people had done the same thing. They had gotten overly excited about getting into the market, and they had jumped out of the market then when they saw it drop, or after it had been down for a while, they gave up and jumped out. And so many people, once again, were no longer prepared for retirement because they hadn't gotten the right advice.
And were there people that you saw on the flip side that did let it ride and they got their retirement back? Because I had a client not too long ago, and he was a prominent man and had a good amount of wealth accumulated until 2008 and lost it all. And now the family was seeking help to get very basics covered for him. And I just was always wondering, were there people that actually might have been panicked, but they left their money there?
Yes.
And it grew back.
Yes. And there's a couple of factors here. Number one, people didn't have that do the right thing. If they're going to be needing the money soon, like it sounds like this gentleman was, it wasn't all in the stock market.
Right.
You had some very conservatively investing. So fortunately, I had also some people I was close to that when they saw the irrational exuberance, it actually spooked them, and they went all super conservative, almost CDs, and they did much better than the others. And then there were other people that had the right mix. They weren't completely thrown off, but they had the right mix so that when the market dropped, There were funds they could take out without having to sell at the bottom for what they need.
Right.
But by staying in and maybe even going more in as gradually as we'll talk about, then they were able to have their retirement still and actually have more than they would have had without the drop.
Right. Okay. That's very interesting. And that is one of the things that I hear from financial advisors a lot, is that if you do have a savings and you have someone that is advising you at the right time to go ahead and buy, because the market does drop sometimes, and we know that it does, sometimes you can use that to your advantage and really, like you said, grow exponentially. And so it's those kinds of things. To me, it's terrifying because I don't really know enough about it. So I trust my person a lot, and that has helped me. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today is that sometimes people feel like they can't invest at all because they're just struggling to make it. They're living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe they have debt. What do you advise that those people do so that they can begin to start investing?
So it's always personalized to the individual. And so, example, with debt, it depends upon, how high that interest rate is and what you're going to be able to work out there, because you don't want to just ignore debt.
Right.
Because some of the interest rates can be higher than what you could be earning.
Right.
So that's always something that has to be addressed. But what I have found is actually even more effective than buying the dips, as it's called. Because, the biggest problem with buying the dips is that you don't actually know when they're going to be.
Yes, that's my problem. And I don't watch it enough to predict anything.
So if I use the slide here, this shows if you were to buy the dips with perfect knowledge of history, starting from 1920,
right,
and going forward, you would only do better during the Great Depression. The rest of the time, the vast majority of the time, you would do better just putting in the same amount of money every month.
Consistency.
Yep. And Napoleon says that the definition of military genius is doing the ordinary thing while everybody around you is in chaos. So just putting in the same amount every month, not letting fear or greed influence. The fear makes you want to jump out.
Right.
The greed makes you want to put too much in. Just doing the same amount every month. So since we don't have that perfect knowledge of when the dip is going to be, if you remove that perfect knowledge and just simply miss it by a couple of months, which is still close.
Yeah.
You would still be not doing as well 97% of the time by buying the dips than you would if you just put the same amount in every month. So this is where discipline and a small amount of money every month, it doesn't have to be large, working on a budget, finding what you can save, and remembering that retired you is going to need some money.
Retired you is definitely going to need some money. I see that every single day. I see the children of people that are they're heartbroken because they're caring for their children still. They're raising their children. And now mom or dad did not prepare. And they're just heartbroken because they want the best for mom and dad, but there's nothing there. And so it really puts a bind on them to figure things out. And sometimes we can help them to figure it out. And sometimes, man, it's just not as good as it should be. I'm just going to say that. And so if I can scream anything loud and long, it is to prepare, even if it's just that little bit at a time. So I wanted to talk to you some about what is the likelihood of being able to make money instead of losing your money investments. We talked a little bit about that, the consistency, but what other things do you have in mind for us?
So in addition to the consistency of putting money in every month so that you end up buying low, so you have more shares when the price is lower. When the price is higher, you get fewer shares, plus your dividends or interest, whatever you're investing in, are paying out. So in addition to that, there's values-based investing. And I think this is particularly important for people who may be vulnerable to the market headlines.
Right,
You know,
right.
Market headlines trick people into doing the wrong thing.
Right.
And not, it's not just any, but the headlines are designed to get your attention. So they're either too good or too bad.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I say, unless you really are learned about this and you have really studied up on investing, I strongly recommend having a financial advisor that you trust, because they can help to walk you through this. You can try to jump the gun and they're going to say, "Oh, hold on a second." Right? That's part of your job, to say, "Hold on a second. I think if you can just take a deep breath, let's look at the way that the market has played out over the last century, and let's see, what makes the best sense right now." Because it doesn't always make the best sense to just have a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, yes. And so I find with values-based investing, one of the real advantages is, so if you think about what's the actual purpose of investing? Investing is to provide money to a business that you believe in so it can succeed.
Right.
Now, in our society, people have come to think of investing as almost like just speculating on what the stock market's going to do.
Yes.
And it ends up completely separated from the original idea of, no, I'm going to provide some money, buy a piece of a good business I believe in, so that it can succeed and I can succeed with it. So with values-based investing, you're investing in companies that you believe in.
Yeah. Right.
So everybody has some form of values. Not everybody feels as strongly about their values. So it depends upon what the investors' values are, how important those things are to them. But if they can invest in something that they really believe in, it's really going to make a difference. Because if you really believe in a company,
yes,
you're not going to want to sell your piece of it just because the price is down. You understand that company. You believe in it.
True. Yeah. So you can really shop around with your financial advisor and find companies that you really do believe in and have value in. For example, if you really love animals, you could probably find companies that are dedicated to making the lives of animals better.
Yes. Right? And also be looking for companies that are concerned about how they're treating animals.
Yes. Yeah.
I do that with a number of clients. So it's very specific to the individual, but it's very rewarding for me because the client is really then able to be far more comfortable with how they're invested than if it's just in something that they really don't understand. So I do respect that a lot of people, they really don't want to think about it. They just want to turn it over to a financial advisor. Yeah. So if you're not going to think about it, you really do need to turn it over to a financial advisor.
Yeah, that's me. I don't have the capacity to sit and think about it.
But if you do want to think about it, the reason that you still might want to work with a financial advisor is they can help you to verify that the company that you think shares your values is still going to be a good investment.
And that does make me wonder, where I do have my money, I do want to think about that a little bit more now and ask and say, hey, here are my values. And that means that you're going to get to know your financial advisor well, not just, you don't want it to just be some Joe Schmo you found on the street that says, hey, I'm a financial advisor. Number one, you want to be able to trust that they're going to make good decisions with and for you. And number two, you really need to let them know who you are, is what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, because the more that you know about your client's values, for example, what deep-seated feelings do they have about money? Because without understanding that, the plan that you put the client in may make them very uncomfortable under some circumstances. So it's very important to understand how they feel about money. what their real priorities are. So this is where the difference comes between artificial intelligence telling you where to invest
Right. Yep.
and a human being.
Yes.
So artificial intelligence can give you information, but it's the emotional intelligence of recognizing, oh, wow, they don't look comfortable when I mentioned this type of investment. I need to find out what the root cause of that is so that I can assure that they're going to be comfortable. Because one of the other issues, I can set up a portfolio that's going to make you money.
Right. Right.
Obviously, that's actually not the difficult thing. But if you are not comfortable with the portfolio, you're worried when it's down, you're worried when you hear news.
Yeah. Right.
You are experiencing fear, maybe even panic. You're not going to live as long to enjoy your money.
Exactly. That's true. Yep. Emotions are very important for our health and well-being.
Emotions are far more important in investing than I ever realized when I started in this field.
Yeah, you don't think about it too much, right? But that's absolute truth, because if you're sitting there worried and anxious about your money, you're not going to be able to just leave it alone. You might have to sit there and pick at it, right?
Yes. So it's the other advantage to having a financial advisor is, you might get all passionate about an idea. And this has happened numerous times where a client got really passionate about an idea. And depending upon the viability of the idea,
Right.
I usually would try to talk them down from investing too much in it.
Right, right.
So it's one more reason to know your client. You can recognize, is this some money you were going to take to Biloxi and gamble with? Then
Yeah.
we can put that amount of money into this particular stock. It's just good to give them that perspective.
Then we can play with this. And if this was the money you plan to retire on, no, you can't.
Yes.
You've got to have that so that you've got something. When do you recommend people start to invest?
So it's amazing how the charts work. There's an example called an expensive cup of coffee that shows that, from the time that you start investing, if you were just to be putting in the money that you would have spent on a cup of coffee every day,
Right.
and put it in with the dollar cost averaging idea again, where you're actually putting maybe
Right,
once
that's
a
right.
month. It takes a few years, but after about 10 years, it really starts to accelerate. Problem is, a lot of people don't give themselves that first 10 years to wait for it to accelerate, but it's the way compounding interest works.
Yes, it's an amazing thing, that compounding interest.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's been said that it's the most powerful force in the universe by Einstein.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Compounding interest. But yeah, those first 10 years, it doesn't show as much. But after that, the curve just shoots up.
Yeah.
So that's why, if people are just still in school or whatever in their 20s, it can be difficult. It depends upon when you're going to start working. Because the other factor is this. The earlier you start working, if you're doing really hard work, the earlier you need to start saving, because
Yes,
the sooner your body's going to wear out.
Yeah, your body can't handle it. Yep.
And so it's sort of like if you're one of these people that wants to be retiring younger because you recognize that your career is hard on your body, then you really do need to be putting money away right from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. I have an 18-year-old son, and I have been very careful about steering my children in this direction for years, because no one did when I was younger. And, I'm 50, and now my husband and I are, I wouldn't say we're scrambling, but we're kind of scrambling to get to a place where at some point we're going to be able to retire. And so I figured out about compounding interest much later in life, and committed to teaching my children. Well, I have an 18-year-old, and he worked for a couple of months last summer, and it turns out at the dinner table, I discovered he had saved almost all of it. And there, sitting in his savings account, was, I asked him, and he said somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000. Well, Mom about lost it. I said, oh no, we don't just have money sitting in our savings account. I'm going to connect you to a financial advisor. So I have a lot of financial advisor friends obviously in the job that I do. And so I connected him with a former teacher that has done very well for him. And he was very disappointed because that was at about 16, he discovered he was not probably going to be a millionaire as a basketball player. He had all his life said, I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 50, Mom, and I'll take care of you. But about 16, he had that eye-opening discovery that he might not be a professional basketball player since he stopped growing at, 6'3". So he came back from his appointment with the financial advisor and he said, I figured out how I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 50. And it was simply by doing the job that he does now part-time and putting aside that money and investing now at 18. And he has got it figured out, the compounding interest and all of that. And it is amazing to watch an 18-year-old kid latch on to that and say, this is going to be me at 50. I can be a millionaire. I don't have to be anything super over the top special in order to do it. I just have to be consistent. And I think that is such a great reminder to us grown-ups.
Oh, absolutely. It's a wonderful lesson to be able to share with your children.
Yeah.
My own mother didn't really get to start on her retirement savings until she was right about 50.
Oh, okay.
And she still did very, very well. And seeing her example and how frugal that she was and learning to be frugal, so important.
Yeah.
Because she was still able to save because she lived frugally. But you were talking about that. So a lot of people, they are just barely making their rent, barely, or their house payment, barely making the groceries, particularly if they have children. They really don't have the money to take care of the parents. It's called the sandwich generation.
Right.
They're stuck right between.
Yep.
And I've seen so many people in that situation really placed under horrendous stress. However, so sometimes the children are raised before they actually get serious about their savings. They might have a little bit, but they haven't started. And it's not ideal, but it's not impossible. What you just need to be doing is, as you get increases in pay and as you find economic opportunities to make more money, you don't increase your standard of living.
Yes.
You need to continue living within the means that you were living in before.
Right.
That's what my mother did. And that way, she was able to have a great retirement fund set up.
Oh, that's very encouraging. And I think it's very important to really focus in on something you said there. She avoided that, what we call lifestyle creep. So as she had those increases, she didn't just increase her style of living. And that is so hard to do because I get extra money and man, I'm automatically thinking of my next vacation. So the lifestyle creep is something you really have to pay attention to. And you said something else too. Sometimes if you can't save anything and you are just making it paycheck to paycheck, you may need to look at other avenues of income, not having all your eggs in one basket in that full-time job that you have. You might need to look at some other things like Ubering or Lyft, or my daughter did Instacart, I think, for a while, or some sort of delivery thing, just to get a little bit of extra cash. And I think that that's a real thing that people can do now to start to say, okay, I can save. I can be prepared.
Yes, it's what my sons are doing at this point. They both have their full-time day job and then they have their part-time job. And it's just simply a way to be able to put away some extra money, even though they're, still younger in the workforce and not at the height of their careers, but it gives you that opportunity. So it's not that you should never, and it's going to go back to the idea of being frugal. Being frugal doesn't mean that you don't take a vacation,
Right.
but it does mean you're going to pay attention to how much everything costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're instead of eating out all your meals, you might be doing the picnics.
Right.
You know,
Or you might do an Airbnb where you can cook a good portion of your meals. Getting way off topic, I like to freezer prep some meals so that when we go on vacation, I don't still have to prep a whole bunch. I can just pull stuff out. But yeah, we don't go out to eat for every meal by any means in our family.
Yeah, there was a point in my life when I was a new attorney and my husband was a young engineer, and we were saving into, just the standard retirement plans. But when I looked back a couple of years later at all the money we had spent on just eating out.
Right.
And it's because, hey, we finally could.
Right. Yeah.
So, don't be too hard on yourself if you weren't frugal for a period, because it's our human nature, it's our society. But
yeah,
thinking in terms of what's going to take care of what you need, and thinking about future you and what future you is going to be needing.
Yes.
It's just very important.
Yeah, I think so. And I see this so many times. And I want to be one of those ones that is prepared and gets to make kind of decisions and where I want to be and what I want the end of my life to look like, and not just have it thrust at me and have to accept it. So I thank you so much for coming in and sharing some of these tips and ideas. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you just really want the listeners to know and take away today?
Just make sure that however it is that you're invested, it's something that you're going to be comfortable with, whether the price is high or low.
Yes.
And anytime you're going to be an investment, and you can just let your imagination think, am I going to be comfortable here if this price drops?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You stop and take a look at it again, because you don't want to allow that sort of fear to cause you to get hurt later.
Right.
And just so many people, when they go into the investments, they're experiencing the greed side. Are like, ooh, this looks like such a great investment, but you got to temper those emotions. And then you're much more likely to succeed.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And if people want to find a good financial investor, I'm going to link your information in the information box. But if they want to find a good investor, financial advisor, I would think that they need to ask some of these questions and find out, what are your values? Do we align? And make sure that they understand where you are in the amount of risk that you're willing to take. Can you think of any other things that they should ask?
Well, it's important to understand how the fees are charged.
Yes, that's another good one. Yeah.
It really is. It shouldn't be that complicated. I think, fortunately, it's getting a little easier to be able to see what the fees are. But I'm always surprised how they're not always upfront. With those. And so, and it's not that you shouldn't be paying any fee. If you have a good advisor that's doing this,
you should pay them what they are
they
worth.
do need to be paid.
Yes.
But you want to know how much they're being paid and how that's being handled. That's really one of the important factors. In addition to, like you say, the process, it can be good to find out what their process is then for locating the right investments for you based upon your values.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, thank you for coming, Kathryn. This was great.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And if you have not liked this podcast yet, please do so. And if you have not subscribed, take a moment to do that as well. And one of the most important things is to share this with someone that it might help to make a difference. Thanks again.